Hi there, I'm going to show you how to get started with your cross stitch today. So first thing you need a pattern, you need a needle with a fairly small eye, it doesn't have to be tiny. You need embroidery floss, you'll need scissors, Aida cloth, and a hoop that's in two parts. So just before we get started, to put your hoop on, Aida cloth, you see I've taped the corners. It's just so that it keeps from fraying. You can see here that it's kind of fraying a little bit. So that's just to prevent the fraying. You don't have to though, and I find that there's different sizes of Aida cloth. This is size 11, so it's smaller, and I find that, or sorry, the Aida cloth is size 11, so the squares themselves are bigger because there's only 11 in an inch, I think it is, and so the squares themselves are bigger, so that's easier to thread in and out. It's good for beginners. It also means that your picture will be bigger because each square is bigger. So you're probably using
Madame Odette, telephone call on line 1. Odette, telephone call on line 1.
You're probably using size 14, which is pretty common, and size 16 is even smaller squares. So your picture can be quite detailed, but not too big. It can be small, but then it is also more intricate, so it's a little bit more challenging. So to put your Aida cloth on, you put it over top of the hoop, open this up by untwisting, and then tighten it on. You want it to be tight, okay? And then tighten the, oops, that's not, right, there we go. Tighten, tighten, tighten. Okay, now to prepare your embroidery floss. Embroidery floss has, if you look, 6, oh, let's get that in focus, has 6 layers. So if you could use all 6 layers on size 11 Aida cloth and it wouldn't look that bad, but typically, just so that we don't go through too much embroidery floss, and especially if you're using size 14 or size 16 Aida cloth, you want to split it into 2. So take 3 and 3, or even 2, 2 and 2. And I've already got some of that done. So you would cut off a section, split it, so cut off a section, split it, and then rewrap the extra piece that you're not using at that moment, so that it's ready for next time. So I've already got some here split, and we'll thread the needle. If it's not threading, you can use a needle threader. If it's not threading, you can snip off the end to make the end nice and flat again. But just keep trying at it, you'll get it. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, so one thing to note about cross stitch, is that we're not going to tie the two ends together. So one thing that we did when we did the hand sewing is that we tied these two pieces together right here. We're not going to do that. You don't want to tie a knot, because then if you tie a knot and you put it through, now all of a sudden your string is twice as short because it's only got this much space, but also now it's doubly thick again. So we just made it 3 strands and now it's 6 because you've got 2 times 3. So you want to have one side shorter than the other. See how there's my needle, there's one side, one end of one side there, and the end of the other side there. So you want to make sure you always have one side that's shorter. Keep that one short. So what you're going to do to start, you're going to hold your hoop with your embroidery floss, choose where you're starting, poke it through, okay, from the back side, pull it through, and don't pull it all the way. Keep going until it's almost, then just put your finger on it like that. So there's the tail coming through. Put your finger on it and hold it. So hold it so you can see my fingers right there. You hold it through, and what we're doing is we're going on a diagonal. I always start bottom left and go up to top right. You could do it the opposite way. You could go top right and go down. You could do the other direction, but just whatever you choose, always keep it the same. I find I go this way. If you start some this way and then start some this way, what you're going to find is, because there'll be some like this and some like this, they're going to be the texture will just be different, and it won't necessarily be as the continuity won't be there in your final piece. So I'm going to go through. So I'll show you on a diagonal. So let's just focus that. There it is. So we went bottom to top, and now I'm still holding this little back tail, and now I'm going to go and I'm going to put it into the hole right beside it. So I don't know if you can see that. Let's just focus that. I'm going to put it into the hole. So it came out of here, and now I'm going to go into the hole right beside it, holding that down. And as I tighten it, it's going to hold that tail in place. So I don't even need to make a knot. I've just made the knot. I'm pulling on it right now, and it's not coming out. So now I'm going to finish my X. Okay, so you see where so this is all within one X. So that's one stitch here. So like, for example, on my pattern, that's like half of his eye, one of the squares of his eye. So now I'm going to keep going. And one thing that you can do is, if you know you have to do 5 in a row, for example, do all 5 in a row on one direction. So I'm doing all one direction for 5 in a row. This keeps the back of your work nice and neat and tidy, and then also it helps you count, right? So you see I'm just kind of like dragging the needle over the back to see where I need to go. So I'm kind of drag it. Oh, there it goes right there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back the other way to finish these X's that I started. So I'm finishing. Let's go backwards. Next one, backwards. Okay, next one, backwards. This is 11 size 8 cloth, so you can still see the white in the back because these X's, the squares are just that much bigger. I personally don't really like using 11, but it's good for beginners, so that's why I have it. Just because I find that it looks more sparse, like it doesn't look as filled in. So you've got probably 14 at home. So there's 5 X's done. Now say I was done with red. I'm like, okay, I'm done with red. I don't want to do red anymore. I want to finish this off. Don't just cut it, because then it could unravel. So and it's hard to tie a knot because it's one piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to just pass the needle underneath some of the red stitches. Don't go all the way through so that you can see the needle in the front, but go in the back. So let me show you one more time. You can do that 1 or 2 times, but one time should be enough. So see how I've just gone underneath one of the stitches, and that's just going to hold that tail in place. So I pull it through, and then now I can cut it. Cut. And it's good to be finished. So now I can, restart at another section if I have more red to do, or I can take this red off and put it back on in with my embroidery floss, so that when I need red again, it's ready to go. It's ready right there for me. So there it is. When it comes to choosing where to start on your pattern, I suggest that you kind of choose somewhere in the middle, because it helps to center it on your fabric. Because if you say started down here and you started up here, and then all of a sudden you got your snail done and you get to his head and you notice, oh, I don't have enough space. Whereas if you start in the middle then you'll have a good idea of where to start. So it's good to plan out where it's going to be on your fabric before you start stitching, because it would really suck to have finished all of this and then realize you don't have enough room for the eyes. Yeah, I think that's it. If you do make some mistakes and you need to take some out, you can sometimes, and it's not been knotted yet, you can sometimes just unthread it with the needle. But if you do have it, if you say you're like, oh, I didn't need that there, I want all of that red out, this is a stitch ripper. You just pass this underneath, and there's a little tiny blade right in this area right here, and so it'll just rip the fabric. But it is a little bit pokey, so be careful if you do use a stitch ripper. So anyways, happy stitching. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.